Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the 19th WFTGA Hybrid Convention. We are coming to you from Madrid in Spain on this fourth and final day of our convention. We're following a very successful first day on the Educational Day where we saw 3 fantastic speakers. And today we will have a lineup of 10 speakers coming to you either virtually or in person. I'm Anushka Ritchie, President of the World Federation of Tourist Guide Associations. And during this week, we've concluded much of our association business with our delegates and our members. Today is our wrap up, and tonight we have our closing dinner where we will be announcing our hosts for the 2024 convention. So be sure to join us. Our first speaker for today is Adolfo Reyes from the World Travel Tourism Council. We look forward to hearing from him as he welcomes us for the opening of our professional day here at our 19th convention. Adolfo.
Good morning, good evening, everyone, even around the world and here in the room. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being here and for all the virtual participants to being online with us. I would like to thank in particular your president, Anushka Ritchie, for the kind invitation for us to joining us today to your first ever hybrid WFTGA convention. This is certainly, I believe, one of the things that the pandemic has left us. We are now more connected than ever, don't you think? All over the world, we're starting to see reactivation of events and conventions, which is a great sign of recovery. We are not out of the woods yet, but certainly we are in the right track. My name is Adolfo Reyes, and I'm honored to be speaking to you today on behalf of the World Travel and Tourism Council. I will briefly introduce you to WTTC. We'll share some figures on the forecast for 2022, and I will share as well some areas where we should all be working to get our sector back on track. If you can move to the next slide, please. There we go. So about WTTC. WTTC was created 30 years ago with this 4-gender model that you see on your screen, where it was the CEO of American Express, the CEO of American Airlines, the CEO of British Airways, and from Marriott. And WTTC was created originally to speak as one voice on behalf of the travel and tourism sector. At that time, there wasn't enough information to position why travel and tourism was important for job creation and what was the economic impact for our sector in the world and in every country and in the local communities. So we've been doing that. We call the economic impact report since the 70s to position travel and tourism on the impact of the economic development and creation of jobs. Nowadays, we gather more than 200 CEOs of the largest organizations in the world. We are the only organization that represents the full array of travel verticals in travel and tourism. It's not only about airlines or airports, it's about hotels, it's about technology providers, it's about cruise lines, travel agencies, tour operators. Many of you might work with tour operators as well, and many other organizations like car rental, hotels, even organizations such as Google, Microsoft, or IBM, which do not provide a service in travel and tourism, but they have interest in travel and tourism. They are part of the council. So we represent really the whole voice of the travel and tourism sector on the private side. Of course, we have a lot of relationships with governments, but we represent the private sector. And it's not only about the big organizations. We also have a segment for small and medium-sized organizations that are also part of the council, and we're growing in that area because we know that 80% of the business and the services are provided by small and medium-sized organizations. So we are getting everyone together to speak as one voice. Talking about our sector, where we were and where we are heading. In 2019, travel and tourism represented 10.4% of global GDP. So we are a huge force of economic development. Our sector represented $9.2 trillion as economic development. In 2020, of course, because of the pandemic, we went down almost 50% to $4.7 trillion. But in 2021, as we have seen signs of recovery already, we were able to recover almost 30% of the ground that we lost, now at 6.1 trillion. And there's a forecast for 2022. If the vaccinations continue at the speed that we are going, if countries continue to open up the borders, we could reach anywhere between 8 trillion and 8.6 trillion in 2022. Fingers crossed, that's the path that we're heading. Now, in terms of jobs, as I mentioned, travel and tourism supported in 2019 334 million jobs around the world. We got a big hit in 2020. We lost almost 60 million jobs, and that was kind of reduced because governments implemented furlough schemes, or what we know in Spain, ERTEs, to actually keep some of the jobs in the freezer that have been kind of coming back slowly in 2021. But we believe that in 2022, there's a good opportunity that we will almost get back to the same levels in the best case scenario, to 331 million jobs and 307 in the conservative scenario. So we are on the right track, and we believe we should be reaching those areas. But what are the sector issues areas? So we have seen, of course, positives and negatives. On the positives, we have seen that the travel and tourism has been outpacing the global economy. Actually, 10 years before 2019, the travel and tourism was growing at faster than the global GDP for 10 years in a row. So that's what we've been calling the golden age of travel. And a good thing is that there's also pent-up demand. So we believe travel and tourism will get back on track on those numbers. We have a big potential to keep creating jobs. A lot of people depend on travel and tourism, and the demand of travel is still there. The pandemic has also brought us great innovation and digitalization. We're seeing it in these events where we are connecting all around the world with people without any boundaries. What are the negatives? Well, of course, the damaging impact on travel restrictions. We have seen that closing borders is not helping. The spread of the virus will continue to do so, even if the borders are closed. So we are urging governments to lift those restrictions and to treat individuals we are the ones who carry the virus with us. It's not a country that is infected, it's a person who is infected. So that's a negative piece on how governments have been reacting to this. And also the lack of harmonization around the world. Some of the opportunities, I think the sustainable and inclusive growth have been one of the outcomes of this pandemic. People is more aware of sustainability, and also the partnerships. Working together, we can achieve more. That's why we're honored to be here with you. So we're partners, and we will make it work together. So where should we be focusing on? We believe this is not everything's lost. We believe that these 5 points that you see, if these are implemented, we can steadily recover and bring back the millions of jobs that have been lost in 2022. We are calling for governments to implement these 5 items that you see on your screen. One of them is simplified systems that allow for fully vaccinated travelers to travel irrespective of where they are from or where they're coming from. We also need to implement digital solutions to make travel easier and quicker to go through the borders. We need to recognize international travelers and all vaccines that have been safe by the by the World Health Organization. It is not believable that even if the vaccines have been approved by the World Health Organization, some countries do not recognize those as valid. So that should go away. We need to continue to implement health and safety protocols so we keep ourselves safe when we travel. And lastly, the vaccine equity. We need to make sure that every single country in the world get access to the vaccines to keep their people safe. So what have we done to address this crisis? Besides working closely, of course, with governments and the private sector to lift the restrictions to reopen international travel safely, WTTC launched the Safe Travel Stamp and the protocols in May 2020. It's been over a year now. And I'm delighted to mention that we have over 400 destinations already adopting and implementing this with the different organizations. Many more businesses have implemented the safe travel protocols. Many of those might apply to you. The protocols have been created in the different travel verticals, protocols for hotels, protocols for airlines, protocols for tour operators and travel agencies. And those are available to the whole public to implement and to read them. Now, what's the future of travel and tourism? In terms of future of our sector, as I mentioned, we have a huge pent-up demand, and we are confident that travel will get back. However, travelers have shifted certain behaviors and preferences, perhaps with longer trips, combining business and leisure, traveling in smaller groups, or with a stronger preference for outdoor experiences. Many of these, what you do fall into this category. So you will be seeing maybe more domestic travel nowadays, but international travel should come back, and this should be a benefit for you. Maybe at the very beginning, you suffered the most because people were not traveling, but hopefully you're seeing that travel, the travelers coming back. Health and hygiene are also very, very important. Travelers will be looking at destinations and organizations that can guarantee their safety and that assure them that the protocols to keep them safe are in place. We also know that innovation and digitalization have accelerated, providing numerous solutions to make travel quicker, easier, and safer. Example of digital passes in the European Union, having a great example of how governments can actually get together to help us all travel without the need of vaccines. Even countries are dropping the testings to be able to travel before the traveler starts. We also know that the next big crisis in our sector needs to be addressed, and this is reflected, or this would be in the climate crisis. Sustainability is a top of mind for policymakers, business, but also for consumers. We are working with governments and the private sector to make travel and tourism part of the solution and have a clear path to achieve the global targets to reduce emissions across travel and tourism. Throughout the pandemic, sustainability has received increased focus. Sustainable growth, is a key priority for WTTC. At WTTC, we're working with governments and with our members and are dedicated to protecting people and the planet and ensuring that our sector acts as a force of good. We need to invest in making sure destinations are great places to live and not just great places to visit. So where should we be investing for our future? We believe that we need to invest in physical infrastructure and connectivity, in digital infrastructure. Even in your own businesses and what you do, you need to start taking advantage of the new technologies, such augmented reality. If you do that, you will complement the technologies that are out there. Don't be afraid of these new technologies. You can use them to enhance how you treat and how you help your customers understand the places that they're visiting with you. We need to also get contactless experiences, crowd management. Sometimes you have the power to decide when you're taking your travelers to a church, to a big destination. Try to get there when there's less people. You can manage that in your businesses. And you need also urban and rural connectivity, right? It's not the same to be in a big city where we can connect pretty much everywhere. You need access to that connectivity also in the smaller places, so you can take your travelers with you with all the technical advances and make sure that they have a great experience. Business travel has been greatly affected, and we have to keep investing in this. We need to focus on, you probably make a big difference in these driven focus areas in wellness tourism. This is what travelers are looking for. Adventure tourism, cultural tourism, sustainable tourism. You impact all these areas. Religious tourism, and we also have to be thinking about inclusive and accessible tourism for those that need it. I know that later on, one of our associates from Indy, Janice Sousa, will be talking about the technological advances that you can use tools to connect your services directly with the traveler, but also with the big OTAs like the Expedias of the world. And if you are able to utilize and adopt these technologies, you'll be able to be also in those big places and be able to manage your businesses more easily than ever before. So what have we seen on the consumer trends? Of course, that travelers or the vaccination rollouts are increasing. The virus is under control. Travelers are also looking for health and safety, as I mentioned several times. Easy and fast ways to digitally travel. The great outdoors is also something that travelers are looking. They are looking for longer stays, for longer play outdoors as well. Wellness is also a priority. And the luxury travel market, we believe it's also going to continue to grow all around the world. I would like to mention that later this year, we will have the Global Summit in the Philippines. This is a big event where we gather the leaders from the government side and the CEOs of the large organizations in the world. We will hold this summit also in a hybrid format, just as you're doing here today. And we invite you all to attend virtually by registering to our virtual platform. I will share the details with your president so you can all attend the summit virtually as well. Before I go, I would like to close by saying that your job in travel and tourism is very, very special. You have the power to make holidays and visits memorable. You help people from all ages to learn about arts, crafts, history, and of local communities around the world. You can also influence how travelers or help travelers protect our natural resources and our outdoors. Sustainability is not about the big enterprises or the governments alone. We can all do our parts to protect what we can while we travel. Thank you all for the work that you do. I wish you all a very successful convention. I will leave you with a short video from the last campaign from WTTC called Reunite. Thank you very much to everyone here in the room and virtually all around the world. Video should be coming shortly. There you go.
Thank you very much, Adolfo, for that interesting presentation. I think the forecasted figures are something that's really interesting for a lot of people, and giving us that insight is helpful for all of us planning for the 2022 year ahead. We had some questions, so let me first start with, when you're gathering the data, do you only use your membership or do you go out into the public to gather that data?
That's a good question. We actually work with Oxford Economics to get this data. So we gather information from all the agencies and governments around the world. Work with Oxford Economics, who also has the expertise to manage these large volumes of data. And that's what we publish all around the world. Governments and members and the public in general actually use this information to make decisions.
Great. I think you touched on technology moving forward and how important looking at things such as augmented reality is important. What you did also mention was the sustainability aspects. And one of the questions we also had come in was, in the interest of sustainability, do you think it is helpful to compare or benchmark numbers to the pre-pandemic situation in the context of over-tourism?
do we need to? I don't think I understood the question.
So you've based your figures on the numbers before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So in the interest of sustainability, using those numbers moving forward, is that prudent to do so?
To use the same numbers. Well, of course, after the pandemic, things have changed, and many destinations have seen, because the numbers have been reduced in those destinations, they have seen an improvement on the previous problems on overcrowding. So I think we need to keep those numbers in mind, because travel will get back. But destinations have had also an opportunity to adapt, and they now know that they can manage those numbers. I was mentioning as well, you make a difference on when are the right timings to bring your travelers to a specific place to avoid overcrowding. I think governments and destinations will be taking measures to try to spread how travelers go to one place and another. So it's good to keep the numbers fresh. We're gonna get back probably to those numbers, and we need those numbers to get back, but we need to make smart decisions so we can spread how travelers go to certain places and make sure we get less impact in the environment or in the local communities.
And I think what you touched on in your presentation was quite important, the role that we as tourist guides play in that, and how important it is to the sustainability of the destinations that we use as well.
Exactly. Technology can actually help a lot on knowing and understanding where are the crowd places, and which times do we need to go there, so we can adjust, and you can adjust your itineraries to make an efficient use of that time. Even your travelers will actually recognize you because of that, because they will have a better experience if they go there when there's less people, and they can enjoy the places even more. Absolutely.
Do we have any final questions from online? Anything in the room? Any questions for Adolfo? Yeah. We have one question in the room. Would you like to use the microphone, please?
Who wants to speak?
Go ahead.
So my question actually towards cruise ships. So what's the your anticipation for the recovery of cruise ships to 100%? We are seeing that cruise industry is being single sourced or taken. For instance, here in the hotel, we are in 100% recovery. We can't take all the rooms. How is it with the cruise ships? How you see that in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. And well, we have many cruise lines are actually represented in WTTC. Actually, our chairman is Arnold Donald from Carnival Cruises. So we know that cruises are going to be one of the last sectors that are going to recover from the pandemic. But the good thing is that travelers that go into cruises are very loyal, and the demand is still there. They're starting to open. We know that for destinations and probably for your job as well, you depend on those ships to keep coming to the different ports, so you can take the travelers around and show them the destination. So it's going to take a little bit longer, but cruise lines have also been able to implement measures on the ships and on the whole process to keep travelers safe. So they'll probably take longer than the rest, but once cruise lines recover, we can certainly say that travel and tourism is back on track.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adolfo. Thank you for your time. Oh, we have one more question. Yes, go ahead.
Microphone.
Just passing the microphone along here.
1, 2, 3.
In the room.
My goodness, I didn't realize I have to engage in sport. I should have let you catch it, Sarah, with your handball.
Why is you not in the video?
Well, I didn't intend to. I just wanted to thank Adolfo. I'm the head of training of WFTJ, and we are using your figures in our training. We are referring everybody to our website, so it's a great resource to have. And in particular, last year we have been also using the video, the one about making travel a force for good, which is really, I think sets the scene as you all today described in words. So a plea, if I may, at the end, to look not only at numbers, but at the quality of the experience, continue to fight for that, and let's fight for it together. But thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And as I said, we represent the whole sector. So please feel part of WTTC as well. We don't want to get anyone behind. So we should all be working together. And this is a great example of collaboration. Alushka, thank you very much for having us today. And thank you all for receiving us.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.